Hi there, it's Kirsty from Kultured Wellness here, and today I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to make an Apple Juice Kefir using the Kultured Wellness Apple Juice Culture Starters. Now the reason why I love these culture starters is because they're so robust. They're teeming with bacteria and they are incredible for supporting your gut microbiome. They have 9 different bacteria strains that have been well researched to support your gut, your immune system, your digestive system and your overall health. But most importantly, it's really yummy and it's really easy to do at home. So let's get started. All you need is a 2.5 to 3 litre glass jar. Now this one's a little bit bigger, but you can start at about that 2.5 to 3 litre jar. You obviously need your culture starter, which you can get from Kultured Wellness, and you need a wooden spoon. Now with regards to your jars, please make sure that you don't use plastic. If you use plastic, the bacteria, because it is so active when you're making your ferment, the bacteria will start eating up that plastic and you will end up drinking plastic. So make sure you use a glass jar. Now to get started, you need 2 litres of apple juice. Now you can make that yourself at home using a cold press juicer. And the reason why I'm saying cold press juicer is because they are the best at retaining and maintaining the integrity of the nutrients of the apple juice. They do it so beautifully. They press the apples and extract the juice rather than pushing it through and you just don't get that nutrients. Now for some people you might not have a cold press juicer and then fortunately these days you can actually buy apple juice from the health food store. You might be able to get it from the markets or even the supermarket these days. If you do buy your apple juice, please make sure that you read the back of the packet and you look out for things like additives, preservatives, fillers, starches, all of those sorts of things. If those things are in that apple juice, it will upset the ferment. The bacteria won't be able to do what it needs to do and it will compromise the ferment. So do your research and make sure it's a nice, pure apple juice. Now, when your culture starter comes to you, it will either be frozen or semi-defrosted and quite cold. So please make sure before you start your ferment, you pop it out on the bench and bring it up to room temperature. For bacteria or starters like this to start the fermenting process, they need to be warm, they need to be active, and if they are too cold, they just don't start the process as actively. So get them up to that room temperature. Now, when you receive your culture starter, if you're not ready to use it straight away, you can either pop it in the fridge and that'll last in the fridge for about a couple of weeks, or you can store it in the freezer and that'll last in the freezer for about 3 months. So you can store it if you don't get started straight away. So we've got our apple juice, we've got our culture starter. Now I've obviously taken it out and popped it in here so you can see what it looks like. And the culture starter is that 250 mils. And literally all you do is add the starter straight into your 2 litres of apple juice. It's pretty easy. It's not rocket science making this kefir. Very, very easy. Grab a wooden spoon, once again, no plastic, but a wooden spoon, and just stir that through. So the starter is evenly throughout the 2 litres of the apple juice. And then all you need to do is pop on your lid. The lid needs to be completely airtight. If it's not airtight, oxygen can get in there, and when oxygen is in a ferment, things like mold will start to grow, it'll compromise the ferment. So you must make sure that you have got an airtight lid. Very, very, very important. Now the ferment will take between 24 and 48 hours. Now that's going to be dependent on the weather. It's going to be dependent on how many batches you've made so far. So the first batch often, almost 100% of the time, takes a lot longer than say your 4th or your 5th batch that you make. So really move with the ferment, as in be flexible with it, and then you will know when it's ready. So how do you know when it's ready? Number one, the time, so that's sort of 24 to 48 hours. Secondly, you'll know when it's ready when it's tart, tingly on the tongue, and you can't taste any of that sugar from the apple. So of course, please taste it. You won't know when it's ready if you don't taste it. It will also have that real fermented taste to it. Now, it can get a bit tricky when you're tasting a ferment to see if it's ready, because we're so programmed in our minds to think, oh, apples are sweet and I can taste sweetness. So you do have to sort of train yourself a little bit to differentiate between that sweetness of the apple taste and that tart fermented taste, but you do want it to be tart. Once it's ready, you store it in the fridge, and you store it in the fridge for about 2 weeks. After that, because the ferment is so active, it really starts to take off and it just doesn't taste as nice, and you really want to drink it up within that 2 weeks, and most of the time you will because it tastes so good. So you store it in the fridge for around 2 weeks. Now, once you've made your first batch, you keep a cup, so that 250 mils, and you start another batch. Once you've done that, you keep a cup and you start another batch. Now you can do that 5 times. And so overall, from one starter that you've grabbed, you can make up to 10 litres of your apple juice kefir. So you make a lot of beautiful, beautiful kefir, which is nourishing your body, nourishing your gut microbiome, your liver, your cells, everything. It's such a wonderful thing to have on a daily basis. There are so many ways that you can consume your apple juice kefir. For example, you can drink it straight up. You can drink it with sparkling water and have it as a really effervescent, beautiful, almost like a cocktail. Serve it in a champagne glass and really enjoy the process. You can also make ice blocks out of it. So I do that quite regularly in summer for my kids. There is an absolute endless amount of things that you can do with your apple juice kefir. Now, if you haven't grabbed the Guttalicious book, our beautiful book, which shows all of the information about how to ferment and also some great recipes on how to use our cultures, make sure you grab that, because there is a huge array of fermenting recipes in there. And of course, go to kulturedwellness.com to grab some more recipe ideas. Now, depending on what size jar you use, you need to make sure that you leave enough room in your jar for the fermenting process to happen. So if you've got a smaller glass jar, please do not fill it right up to the top. Leave some room. So around the neck of the jar or just a little bit lower. Now, obviously this is a big jar, so it's completely fine, but just make sure you're not filling it right up to the top, because otherwise it may explode during the fermenting process. Finally, one last thing. When you are using your glass jars and you're making your ferments, please do not use detergent. The detergent puts a slimy film on the jars and it really interrupts the fermenting process and it upsets our beautiful bacteria. So wash out your glass jars in hot water. Use your hand, it's fine. You don't need to use any forms of scrubbers or cloths. Just use your hand, wash it out, and then just air dry it, and then you're ready to go to make your next ferment. So it's not, tricky. The other thing is that I just wanted to go back and talk about how do you know when it's ready. And I talked about the weather and the temperature. The ideal temperature for a ferment is around about 18 to 22 degrees. Now, often in wintertime, our houses, especially in Australia, often don't get up to 18 to 22 degrees. And so you might have to either leave it out for an extra couple of days, or you might have to take it into the lounge room next to your fire or next to the heater, or you might have to pop it in a warm spot in the house to ensure that ferment keeps going and is activated. Flip side of that is in the summertime when it's really, really hot, it will take off and it will go for it and it will ferment very, very quickly. Sometimes in summer I've had ferments, the apple juice ferments, and they take off and are ready after 12 hours. So once again, be flexible and keep testing and making sure that you know when it's ready. So that's all there is to it, to make your apple juice kefir. It's a beautiful drink to have and you will thoroughly enjoy it.